Question 1. System analysis indicates a critical need to upgrade the air traffic control system to enhance efficiency and safety. The proposed new system offers advanced features, but requires significant integration into the existing operational infrastructure. The implementation team is under pressure to complete the upgrade within a tight time frame. Considering the paramount importance of uninterrupted air traffic safety and regulatory compliance, which approach to implementing the new system is most professionally sound and aligned with aviation safety principles? Option A. Conduct extensive parallel testing of the new system alongside the existing one for a defined period, followed by a phased rollout of the new system's functionalities, with continuous monitoring and validation against established safety and performance benchmarks. Option B. Immediately deploy the new system and decommission the old one to minimize disruption and leverage the new technology's benefits as quickly as possible. Option C. Focus exclusively on the technical specifications and performance metrics of the new system, assuming its seamless integration and operational readiness without extensive validation in the live environment. Option D. Integrate the new system's components into the existing infrastructure on an ad hoc basis as they become available, prioritizing speed of deployment over comprehensive testing. Correct answer is A. Conduct extensive parallel testing of the new system alongside the existing one for a defined period, followed by a phased rollout of the new system's functionalities, with continuous monitoring and validation against established safety and performance benchmarks. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in implementing a new air traffic control system upgrade within a live operational environment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the imperative for technological advancement and enhanced safety with the absolute necessity of maintaining continuous, uninterrupted air traffic flow and preventing any compromise to the existing safety standards. The pressure to meet deadlines, coupled with the inherent risks of introducing novel technology, requires meticulous planning, robust testing, and a phased implementation strategy. The professional challenge is to navigate these competing demands without introducing new risks or degrading current performance. Correct approach analysis. A phased, incremental rollout of the new system, coupled with extensive parallel testing and rigorous validation against established performance metrics and regulatory requirements, represents best professional practice. This approach aligns with aviation safety principles that prioritize risk mitigation through controlled introduction of change. Specifically, it adheres to the spirit of regulations that mandate thorough testing and validation before operational deployment, ensuring that any new system demonstrably meets or exceeds existing safety and performance standards. This method allows for early detection and correction of issues in a controlled environment, minimizing the impact on live operations and providing a safety net of the legacy system. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing the new system immediately and decommissioning the old one without a period of parallel operation or extensive independent validation would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses critical safety checks mandated by aviation authorities, which require proof of system reliability and safety under operational conditions. It introduces an unacceptable level of risk by assuming the new system's performance without empirical evidence in the live environment. Attempting to integrate the new system with the old one in a piecemeal fashion without a clear, overarching integration plan and comprehensive testing would also be professionally unacceptable. This approach lacks the systematic rigor required by aviation regulations for system integration. It creates a high probability of unforeseen interactions between the two systems, leading to unpredictable failures and potential safety hazards. The lack of a structured validation process means that critical safety interdependencies might not be identified or addressed. Focusing solely on the technical capabilities of the new system without adequately considering its impact on existing operational procedures, controller workload, and human factors would be a failure to comply with broader aviation safety management system requirements. Regulations emphasize a holistic approach to safety, encompassing not just technology, but also the human element and procedural integrity. This oversight could lead to increased controller error, reduced situational awareness, and ultimately a compromise of air traffic safety. Professional reasoning. Professionals in air traffic control system implementation must adopt a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves identifying potential hazards, assessing their likelihood and severity, and implementing control measures. For system upgrades, This translates to prioritizing safety through a structured, evidence-based approach. The decision-making process should involve 1. Thorough understanding of all applicable regulations and guidelines. 2. Comprehensive risk assessment of the proposed implementation strategy. 3. Development of a detailed implementation plan that includes phased rollout, extensive testing, including simulation and parallel operations, and contingency planning. 4. Continuous monitoring and evaluation throughout the implementation process. 5. Clear communication and collaboration with all stakeholders, including regulatory bodies, operational staff, and system developers. Question 2. To address the challenge of integrating a new air traffic control system upgrade into a live operational environment, which implementation strategy best ensures safety and operational continuity while adhering to aviation regulatory frameworks? Option A. A phased implementation approach, beginning with extensive simulation and followed by a gradual rollout in controlled airspace, with continuous monitoring and immediate rollback capabilities. Option B. A rapid deployment strategy with minimal pre-implementation testing, relying on real-time troubleshooting by operational controllers. Option C. Immediate full system deployment during a period of high air traffic volume to quickly realize the benefits of the upgrade. Option D. Implementing the upgrade during off-peak hours with a limited scope, without comprehensive simulation or rollback plans. Correct answer is A. A phased implementation approach, beginning with extensive simulation and followed by a gradual rollout in controlled airspace, with continuous monitoring and immediate rollback capabilities. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge in implementing a new air traffic control system upgrade within a live operational environment. The primary difficulty lies in balancing the critical need for enhanced safety and efficiency offered by the upgrade with the inherent risks associated with introducing new technology into a system where human lives and complex operations are constantly at stake. This requires meticulous planning, rigorous testing, and a phased implementation strategy to minimize disruption and prevent potential safety incidents. The pressure to adopt advanced technology quickly can create a conflict between operational demands and the thoroughness required for safe integration. The correct approach involves a comprehensive, multi-stage validation and verification process, including extensive simulation and a carefully managed transition period. This aligns with the fundamental principles of aviation safety regulations, which mandate that any change to air traffic management systems must be proven safe and effective before full operational deployment. This approach prioritizes safety by allowing controllers to familiarize themselves with the new system in a controlled environment, identify and rectify any unforeseen issues, and ensure seamless integration with existing procedures and infrastructure. It reflects best professional practice by adhering to a risk-averse methodology that is paramount in aviation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on rapid deployment without adequate testing would be a severe regulatory and ethical failure. It would violate the principle of safety first, ingrained in aviation regulations, which requires demonstrable evidence of system integrity and reliability. Such an approach would expose the air traffic system to unacceptable risks, potentially leading to errors, communication breakdowns, or system failures, all of which could have catastrophic consequences. Ethically, it would represent a dereliction of duty to prioritize expediency over the safety of the flying public and the controllers themselves. Another incorrect approach, such as implementing the upgrade during peak operational hours without a contingency plan, would also be a significant failure. This disregards the potential for system instability during the initial integration phase and the need for a controlled environment to manage any emergent problems. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to implement robust risk mitigation strategies, directly contravening regulatory requirements for change management and operational continuity. Professional decision-making process for such situations should involve a thorough risk assessment, followed by the development of a detailed implementation plan that includes phased rollouts, extensive simulation, and robust fallback procedures. Continuous monitoring and evaluation throughout the transition are essential, with clear protocols for immediate intervention and rollback if safety is compromised. Collaboration between technical teams, operational controllers, and regulatory bodies is crucial to ensure all aspects of safety and compliance are addressed. Question 3. Analysis of the implementation of a new surveillance system designed to enhance situational awareness for air traffic controllers, which has shown promising results in simulations, but has experienced intermittent data discrepancies during initial limited field testing, presents a critical decision point. What is the most professionally responsible course of action to ensure airspace safety and operational integrity? Option A. Continue with the limited field testing as planned, but instruct controllers to manually cross-reference all data from the new system with existing radar feeds for an indefinite period, without a defined timeline for full integration. Option B. Halt full integration and initiate a comprehensive, multi-phase validation process, including extended field testing under diverse operational conditions and rigorous independent verification of data accuracy and system reliability before any further operational deployment. Option C. Proceed with full operational integration of the new surveillance system, relying on the vendor's assurances and the positive simulation results, while implementing a temporary, less intrusive monitoring protocol for the new system's data. Option D. Immediately deploy the new system across all sectors, disabling older, less advanced systems to maximize the potential benefits of the new technology and address any emerging issues reactively. The correct answer is C. Proceed with full operational integration of the new surveillance system, relying on the vendor's assurances and the positive simulation results, while implementing a temporary, less intrusive monitoring protocol for the new system's data. Explanation. The scenario presents a common implementation challenge in air traffic control, integrating new technology while maintaining operational safety and efficiency. Professional challenge lies in balancing the benefits of advanced systems with the inherent risks of introducing change, particularly when the new system's performance is not yet fully validated under all operational conditions. This requires careful judgment, risk assessment, and adherence to established procedures. The correct approach emphasizes a phased implementation and rigorous validation process. This aligns with the fundamental principle of aviation safety, which prioritizes preventing incidents and accidents by conducting thorough testing in a controlled environment and gradually introducing the system into live operations with continuous monitoring. Air traffic controllers and management ensure that the technology functions as intended and does not compromise the safety of the airspace. This methodical approach minimizes the potential for unforeseen errors or system failures that could endanger aircraft. It reflects best professional practice by adhering to the spirit and letter of regulations that mandate safety assurance for all operational systems. An incorrect approach that bypasses or inadequately performs validation testing before full implementation is professionally unacceptable. This would constitute a direct violation of regulatory requirements that mandate the certification and validation of all safety-critical systems. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the paramount importance of passenger and crew safety. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on vendor assurances without independent verification, fails to uphold the professional responsibility of air traffic control authorities to ensure the integrity of their systems. This neglects the due diligence required to identify potential system limitations or vulnerabilities. A third incorrect approach, which involves prematurely disabling established backup systems in favor of the new technology, creates an unacceptable single point of failure and directly contravenes safety protocols designed to ensure redundancy and resilience in air traffic management. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety above all else. This involves a systematic risk assessment process, including identifying potential hazards, evaluating their likelihood and severity, and implementing appropriate mitigation strategies. When implementing new technology, this framework dictates a cautious, evidence-based approach, starting with simulation and testing, followed by controlled operational trials and continuous performance monitoring. Adherence to established safety management systems and regulatory guidelines is non-negotiable. Question 4. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a critical system failure during a high-traffic period, with a severe consequence if it occurs. Considering the planned implementation of a new air traffic management system upgrade during this same period, which of the following actions best reflects a professional and safety-conscious approach? Option A. Proceed with the system upgrade as scheduled, but implement enhanced monitoring protocols and ensure all controllers are fully briefed on potential failure modes. Option B. Implement the system upgrade during the high traffic period, but reduce the overall traffic volume to compensate for the increased system vulnerability. Option C. Proceed with the system upgrade as scheduled, assuming that the benefits of the new system will outweigh any temporary risks and that system failures are rare. Option D. Postpone the system upgrade until after the high traffic period, or implement it during a period of lower traffic to ensure the integrity of the existing system during peak demand. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the system upgrade as scheduled, but implement enhanced monitoring protocol and ensure all controllers are fully briefed on potential failure modes. Explanation. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a critical system failure during a high traffic period, with a severe consequence if it occurs. This scenario presents a significant implementation challenge because it requires balancing operational efficiency with safety assurance. The challenge lies in deciding whether to proceed with a planned system upgrade that, while offering long-term benefits, introduces a temporary period of increased vulnerability. Air traffic controllers must make a judgment call that prioritizes the safety of the airspace above all else, even if it means delaying a beneficial upgrade or accepting a temporary increase in workload and monitoring. The correct approach involves a thorough risk assessment and mitigation strategy that prioritizes safety. This means acknowledging the moderate likelihood and severe consequence identified in the risk matrix. Best professional practice dictates a conservative stance. If the risk cannot be demonstrably reduced to an acceptable level before the high traffic period, the upgrade should be postponed or implemented during a period of lower traffic. This aligns with the fundamental principle of aviation safety, which mandates that all operational decisions must ensure the highest level of safety. Regulatory frameworks, such as those governing air traffic management, emphasize a proactive approach to safety, requiring controllers to identify, assess, and mitigate risks before they can impact operations. This includes having contingency plans and the authority to defer non-critical changes when safety is compromised. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the upgrade without adequate mitigation, assuming the likelihood of failure is low enough to be acceptable. This fails to respect the severity of the consequence and disregards the moderate likelihood indicated by the risk matrix. Ethically and regulatorily, this is unacceptable as it places the flying public at undue risk. Another incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the long-term benefits of the upgrade, downplaying the immediate risks. This demonstrates a failure in risk management and a disregard for the immediate safety implications. It prioritizes efficiency or technological advancement over the paramount concern of safety. A third incorrect approach would be to rely on anecdotal evidence or past experiences where similar upgrades did not cause issues, ignoring the specific data presented in the risk matrix for this particular high-traffic period. This is a failure to apply a systematic and data-driven approach to safety management, which is a cornerstone of professional air traffic control. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a structured process. First, fully understand the identified risks and their potential consequences. Second, evaluate all available mitigation strategies and their effectiveness. Third, consult relevant operational procedures and regulatory guidance. Fourth, if uncertainty remains or risks cannot be adequately controlled, err on the side of caution by delaying the action or implementing it under more controlled conditions. Finally, document the decision-making process and the rationale behind it. Question 5. Stakeholder feedback indicates a desire for increased air traffic throughput during peak hours, and a controller observes an opportunity to slightly reduce the standard longitudinal separation between two aircraft on final approach to expedite their landing sequence. The controller is confident that the pilots are highly experienced and capable of maintaining visual separation if needed, and that the slight reduction would still be within acceptable operational margins, though not strictly adhering to the published minimum. What is the most appropriate course of action for the air traffic controller? Option A. Consult with the pilots directly to gauge their comfort level with a reduced separation interval before proceeding. Option B. Maintain the prescribed longitudinal separation minima and issue clearances accordingly, even if it results in a slightly longer interval between landings. Option C. Instruct the pilots to maintain visual separation from each other to compensate for the reduced longitudinal separation. Option D. Reduce the longitudinal separation slightly to expedite the landing sequence, relying on the pilot's experience to manage any residual risk. The correct answer is B. maintain the prescribed longitudinal separation minima, and issue clearances accordingly, even if it results in a slightly longer interval between landings. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the inherent tension between operational efficiency and the paramount importance of safety in air traffic control. The controller is faced with a situation where a minor deviation from standard procedure, driven by a desire to expedite traffic flow and respond to perceived stakeholder pressure, implied by the stakeholder feedback, could potentially compromise the integrity of separation standards. The professional challenge lies in discerning when expediency crosses the line into unacceptable risk, and in upholding the primary duty of safety above all other considerations, even when faced with external pressures or the temptation to streamline operations. The correct approach, which involves strictly adhering to established separation minima and issuing clearances that ensure these minima are maintained, represents best professional practice because it directly aligns with the fundamental regulatory framework governing air traffic control. This framework, exemplified by the principles enshrined in the ATSA tests governing regulations, which would be specific to the jurisdiction of the ATSA, e.g., FA Order Jo 7110, 65 in the U.S., or equivalent national regulations, mandates that controllers maintain prescribed separation between aircraft at all times. This is not merely a guideline but a legal and ethical imperative designed to prevent mid-air collisions. Upholding these minima, even if it leads to minor delays or requires more complex coordination, is the controller's non-negotiable responsibility. An incorrect approach that prioritizes expediting traffic flow by reducing separation below the prescribed minima would represent a direct violation of regulatory mandates. This failure stems from a misapplication of judgment, where operational goals are incorrectly elevated above safety requirements. Such an action would be a breach of the controller's duty of care and could lead to catastrophic consequences, with severe legal and professional repercussions. Another incorrect approach, which involves making assumptions about the pilot's intentions or capabilities to compensate for reduced separation, is equally unacceptable. Air traffic control operates on a system of clearances and instructions, not on assumptions. Relying on a pilot to figure it out, or to maintain their own separation in a situation where the controller has failed to provide it, is a dereliction of duty and a fundamental misunderstanding of the controller's role in maintaining the safety of the airspace. This approach undermines the structured and procedural nature of air traffic control, which is designed to provide a clear and unambiguous framework for safe operations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should be guided by a clear hierarchy of priorities. Safety is always first. Controllers must be trained to recognize situations where operational pressures might tempt them to deviate from standard procedures. A robust decision-making framework involves 1. Identifying the core regulatory requirement, e.g., maintaining specific separation minima. 2. Assessing the current situation against that requirement. 3. If a deviation is contemplated, rigorously evaluating the potential risks, even for seemingly minor adjustments. 4. Prioritizing adherence to regulations and established procedures over expediency. 5. Communicating clearly and unambiguously with pilots and other controllers. 6. Seeking assistance or clarification from supervisors if there is any doubt about the correct course of action. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are grounded in safety and regulatory compliance, rather than subjective judgment or external pressures. Question 6. What factors determine the appropriate response when an air traffic controller observes a minor, non-compliance deviation from standard operating procedures by a colleague that could potentially impact aircraft separation in the future? Option A. The potential for the deviation to compromise aircraft separation, regardless of its immediate impact, and the requirement to adhere strictly to all established safety regulations and procedures. Option B. The controller's personal assessment of the colleague's competence and the likelihood of them repeating the deviation without intervention. Option C. The immediate need to maintain traffic flow and minimize delays, coupled with the perceived low probability of the deviation causing an actual safety incident. Option D. The urgency of other operational tasks and the availability of supervisory personnel to address the deviation. The correct answer is C. The immediate need to maintain traffic flow and minimize delays, coupled with the perceived low probability of the deviation causing an actual safety incident. Explanation: This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the inherent conflict between operational efficiency and the paramount safety mandate of air traffic control. The controller is faced with a situation where a minor deviation from standard procedure, if unaddressed, could potentially cascade into a more significant safety risk due to cumulative effects or unforeseen circumstances. The pressure to maintain flow and minimize delays is a constant factor, but it must never supersede the responsibility to ensure the safe separation of aircraft. The correct approach involves prioritizing safety by addressing the deviation immediately and appropriately. This aligns with the fundamental ethical and regulatory principles of air traffic control, which place the highest value on preventing accidents and ensuring the integrity of the air traffic system. By taking corrective action, the controller upholds their professional duty, adheres to established safety protocols, and mitigates any potential risk, however small it may initially appear. This proactive stance is a hallmark of best professional practice. An incorrect approach would be to overlook or dismiss the deviation due to perceived minor impact or time pressure. This failure represents a direct contravention of regulatory requirements that mandate strict adherence to separation standards and operational procedures. Ethically, it demonstrates a lapse in professional judgment and a disregard for the potential consequences, however remote. Another incorrect approach might involve attempting to fix the situation informally without proper reporting or documentation. This bypasses established safety management systems, hinders learning from potential errors, and erodes accountability. It also fails to acknowledge the importance of maintaining a clear and accurate record of all air traffic control actions and events. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a rapid assessment of the situation, prioritizing safety above all else. This includes identifying the deviation, evaluating its immediate and potential future impact on safety, and then implementing the most appropriate corrective action in accordance with established procedures and regulations. If there is any doubt about the safety implications, the default action must always be to err on the side of caution and take steps to ensure separation. Open communication and adherence to reporting protocols are also crucial components of this process. Question 7. Quality control measures reveal that an air traffic controller, while managing a busy sector, allowed an aircraft to deviate slightly from a standard holding pattern to expedite its arrival, a deviation not explicitly authorized by current procedures for that specific situation. The controller did not log or report this deviation, believing it to be a minor adjustment that improved traffic flow without compromising safety. What is the most appropriate course of action for the controller to take immediately following this realization? Option A. Assume the deviation was inconsequential due to the lack of any immediate safety impact and continue with normal duties without further action. Option B. Discuss the incident informally with a supervisor to gauge their opinion on whether reporting is necessary, given the perceived minor nature of the deviation. Option C. Amend the flight data record to reflect a standard procedure that was followed, thereby correcting the record retrospectively. Option D. Immediately report the deviation through the established safety reporting system, detailing the circumstances and the rationale for the deviation, and cooperate fully with any subsequent review. Correct answer is D. Immediately report the deviation through the established safety reporting system, detailing the circumstances and the rationale for the deviation, and cooperate fully with any subsequent review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the inherent conflict between operational efficiency and the paramount importance of safety and regulatory compliance. The air traffic controller is faced with a situation where a minor, non-standard procedure deviation, while seemingly expedient, could potentially mask or contribute to a larger systemic issue or a future safety compromise. The pressure to maintain flow rates and minimize delays is a constant factor in air traffic control, but it must never supersede the established safety protocols and regulatory mandates designed to prevent accidents. The correct approach, which involves immediately reporting the deviation and initiating a review, represents best professional practice because it upholds the core principles of air traffic safety and regulatory adherence. This action directly aligns with the fundamental duty of an air traffic controller to ensure the safe and orderly flow of air traffic, as mandated by aviation regulations. By reporting the deviation, the controller is not only addressing the immediate instance, but also contributing to the continuous improvement of the air traffic system. This proactive stance allows for the identification of potential weaknesses in procedures, training, or equipment that might have contributed to the deviation, thereby preventing future occurrences and reinforcing the overall safety culture. This aligns with the principles of just culture, where reporting errors and deviations is encouraged without fear of undue punishment, fostering an environment of learning and improvement. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking the deviation and continuing operations without reporting fails to acknowledge the potential for cascading safety issues. This action violates the regulatory requirement to report deviations from standard operating procedures and compromises the integrity of the air traffic control system. It suggests a disregard for established safety protocols and a prioritization of immediate operational convenience over long-term safety. This could be seen as a breach of professional responsibility and a failure to uphold the trust placed in air traffic controllers by the flying public and regulatory bodies. Another incorrect approach, which involves discussing the deviation informally with colleagues without formal reporting, also represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. While collegial discussion can be valuable, it does not substitute for the formal reporting mechanisms required by aviation authorities. This informal approach fails to create an official record of the incident, preventing a thorough investigation and the implementation of corrective actions at a systemic level. It also bypasses the established channels for accountability and learning, potentially leaving systemic issues unaddressed and increasing the risk of recurrence. This approach undermines the transparency and accountability expected within a safety-critical industry. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear, step-by-step approach prioritizing safety and compliance. First, assess the immediate safety implications of the deviation. If there is any immediate risk to aircraft or personnel, take immediate action to mitigate that risk. Second, consult the relevant regulations and standard operating procedures to understand the specific requirements related to the deviation. Third, initiate the formal reporting process as mandated by the governing aviation authority. This typically involves documenting the incident accurately and submitting it through the designated channels. Fourth, cooperate fully with any subsequent investigation or review. Finally, reflect on the incident to identify any personal learning opportunities and contribute to the collective knowledge base for improving air traffic safety. This structured approach ensures that all deviations are handled with the seriousness they deserve, contributing to a robust and continuously improving safety system. Question 8. Regulatory review indicates that an air traffic controller managing a busy sector observes a pilot momentarily deviate from a cleared altitude by a small, unconfirmed margin during a descent. The controller is under pressure to maintain traffic flow and minimize delays. What is the most appropriate immediate action for the controller to take? Option A. Inform the pilot of the deviation and request they acknowledge it before continuing their descent. Option B. Allow the aircraft to continue its descent while making a mental note of the deviation for potential follow-up later. Option C. Immediately instruct the aircraft to return to the cleared altitude and confirm its position before allowing further descent. Option D. Overlook the minor deviation, assuming it was within acceptable operational tolerances and not a significant safety concern. The correct answer is C. Immediately instruct the aircraft to return to the cleared altitude and confirm its position before allowing further descent. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the inherent conflict between operational efficiency and the absolute priority of safety, a cornerstone of air traffic control. The controller is faced with a situation where a minor procedural deviation, if overlooked, could potentially streamline operations in the short term, but carries a latent risk of compromising the established safety margins. The pressure to maintain flow rates and minimize delays is a constant factor in air traffic management, making the decision to adhere strictly to regulations, even when it appears to cause a minor inconvenience, a test of professional integrity and commitment to safety. The correct approach, which involves immediately addressing the deviation and ensuring full compliance before allowing the aircraft to proceed, represents best professional practice because it upholds the fundamental principle of safety first. This aligns directly with the core tenets of air traffic control regulations, which prioritize the prevention of accidents and incidents above all else. By taking immediate corrective action, the controller demonstrates adherence to established procedures designed to mitigate risk, even in seemingly minor circumstances. This proactive stance ensures that no potential hazard, however small, is left unaddressed, thereby safeguarding the integrity of the air traffic system. An incorrect approach of allowing the aircraft to proceed while noting the deviation for later review fails to meet regulatory and ethical standards. This constitutes a regulatory failure by implicitly condoning a breach of established procedures, which are in place for safety reasons. Ethically, it represents a lapse in professional responsibility by prioritizing expediency over safety. Another incorrect approach, that of overlooking the deviation entirely due to perceived minimal risk or pressure to maintain flow, is a severe regulatory and ethical failure. It directly contravenes the see and avoid principle inherent in air traffic control and demonstrates a disregard for the established safety protocols that are the bedrock of the profession. Such an action could have catastrophic consequences and would be a gross dereliction of duty. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear, immediate assessment of the deviation against established regulations and safety procedures. The controller must prioritize the immediate resolution of any safety compromising factor before allowing further progression of air traffic. This involves a systematic evaluation. Is there a deviation? What is the potential risk? What is the required corrective action according to regulations? The decision must be made based on established protocols, not on perceived pressure or convenience. If in doubt, consulting with a supervisor or referring to procedural manuals is always the correct course of action. Question 9. Governance review demonstrates that a recent operational incident involved an air traffic controller making a minor, unlogged deviation from a standard separation procedure to expedite the arrival of an aircraft. While no immediate safety compromise occurred, the deviation was not reported as per standard operating procedures. The controller subsequently faced pressure from supervisors to maintain high traffic throughput. In this context, what is the most appropriate professional course of action for the controller regarding the unlogged deviation? Option A. Attempt to retroactively justify the deviation by subtly altering subsequent clearances to create a narrative of compliance, and do not report the initial lapse. Option B. Assume the deviation was acceptable due to the lack of immediate safety impact and the operational pressures, and refrain from reporting it to avoid unnecessary scrutiny. Option C. Discuss the deviation with colleagues to gauge their opinions on whether such minor procedural adjustments are typically reported, and proceed based on the consensus. Option D. Immediately report the deviation to the appropriate supervisory and safety reporting channels, acknowledging the procedural lapse and its potential implications, regardless of the perceived minor nature or lack of immediate consequence. The correct answer is D. Immediately report the deviation to the appropriate supervisory and safety reporting channels, acknowledging the procedural lapse and its potential implications, regardless of the perceived minor nature or lack of immediate consequence. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the inherent conflict between operational efficiency and the paramount importance of safety and regulatory compliance in air traffic control. The controller is faced with a situation where a minor, seemingly inconsequential deviation from standard procedure could expedite traffic flow, but doing so carries a risk, however small, of compromising safety margins or violating established protocols. The pressure to maintain punctuality and manage workload is a constant factor in air traffic control, making such ethical dilemmas particularly potent. Correct approach, which involves strictly adhering to established procedures and reporting the deviation, represents best professional practice because it prioritizes safety above all else. Air traffic control operates under a stringent regulatory framework designed to prevent catastrophic events. Deviating from these procedures, even for perceived efficiency gains, undermines the integrity of the system and can set a dangerous precedent. Reporting the incident, even if minor, ensures transparency, allows for potential learning and improvement of procedures, and upholds the controller's professional responsibility to the regulatory body and the flying public. This aligns with the core ethical principles of aviation safety, which demand unwavering commitment to established standards. An incorrect approach would be to overlook the deviation and not report it, rationalizing that it was minor and did not pose an immediate threat. This fails to acknowledge the cumulative effect of minor deviations and the potential for them to escalate or mask more significant issues. Represents a failure to uphold the controller's duty of care and a disregard for the regulatory framework, which mandates reporting of all operational anomalies. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to fix the deviation without reporting it, perhaps by subtly altering subsequent clearances. This is ethically problematic as it involves falsifying operational records and further erodes the transparency and accountability essential to air traffic control. It also bypasses the established channels for addressing procedural issues, potentially preventing systemic improvements. The professional decision-making process in such situation should involve a clear, immediate assessment of the risk posed by the deviation. If any doubt exists regarding safety or compliance, the default action must be to adhere to established procedures and report the incident. Controllers should be trained to recognize that operational pressures, while real, do not supersede safety regulation. Robust professional reasoning framework involves understanding the why behind each procedure, recognizing that they are not arbitrary but are based on extensive safety analysis. When faced with a dilemma, the controller should ask, does this action compromise safety? Does it violate a regulation? What are the potential long-term consequences of this deviation? The answer to these questions should guide the decision towards the safest and most compliant course of action, even if it is not the most operationally expedient. Question 10. The performance metrics show a consistent pattern of increased arrival sequencing delays during peak hours, impacting overall airspace efficiency. Considering the need to optimize flow while maintaining safety, which of the following actions best reflects a professional approach to process optimization within the regulatory framework? Option A. Implement unilateral, unapproved adjustments to standard separation minima or create non-standard arrival patterns to expedite aircraft flow, assuming the risk is manageable. Option B. Continue to apply standard arrival sequencing procedures without deviation, as these are designed to ensure safety, and accept the resulting delays as an unavoidable consequence of peak traffic. Option C. Proactively analyze the root causes of the delays. Consult with supervisors and adjacent sectors to collaboratively develop and implement revised sequencing strategies or flow control measures, and monitor their effectiveness. Option D. Focus solely on managing immediate traffic flow within the assigned sector, deferring any discussion of systemic delays to a later, less busy period or to a different department. The correct answer is C. Proactively analyze the root causes of the delays, consult with supervisors and adjacent sectors to collaboratively develop and implement revised sequencing strategies or flow control measures, and monitor their effectiveness. Explanation. The performance metrics show a consistent pattern of increased arrival sequencing delays during peak hours, impacting overall airspace efficiency. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an air traffic controller to balance the immediate need for safety and adherence to standard operating procedures with the broader objective of optimizing airspace flow and minimizing delays. The controller must make decisions that are not only compliant but also strategically sound, considering the cascading effects of their actions on other sectors and downstream operations. The correct approach involves a proactive and collaborative strategy. This means analyzing the root causes of the delays, which might include suboptimal runway utilization, inefficient sequencing of aircraft, or inadequate communication between adjacent sectors. Best professional practice dictates that the controller should consult with supervisors and adjacent sector controllers to identify and implement procedural adjustments. This could involve revising arrival spacing standards during peak times, optimizing the use of available landing resources, or implementing more dynamic flow control measures. Such an approach aligns with the overarching goals of air traffic management, which emphasize efficiency and capacity optimization while maintaining the highest safety standards. This is supported by regulatory frameworks that encourage continuous improvement and the adoption of best practices to enhance system performance. An incorrect approach would be to simply adhere to standard procedures without seeking to understand or address the underlying cause of the delays. This might involve continuing to issue standard separation instructions, even when it leads to significant delays, without exploring alternative sequencing strategies or communicating the issue to higher authorities. This failure to proactively address a systemic issue represents a lapse in professional responsibility, as it prioritizes rote compliance over effective air traffic management. It could also be seen as a failure to uphold the spirit of regulations that mandate efficient airspace utilization. Another incorrect approach would be to implement ad hoc, uncoordinated changes to sequencing without proper consultation or risk assessment. This could involve unilaterally altering standard separation minima or creating non-standard arrival patterns. Such actions, while potentially aimed at reducing delays, pose significant safety risks and violate established procedures and regulatory guidelines. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the interconnectedness of the air traffic system and the importance of standardized, approved procedures. It also disregards the ethical obligation to maintain safety above all else. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Data analysis. Thoroughly review performance metrics to identify trends and anomalies. 2. Root cause analysis. Investigate the underlying reasons for the observed performance issues. 3. Consultation and collaboration. Engage with supervisors, colleagues, and relevant stakeholders to gather insights and propose solutions. 4. Risk assessment. Evaluate the safety implications of any proposed changes. 5. Procedural adherence and adaptation. Implement solutions that are compliant with regulations and standard operating procedures, or seek formal approval for necessary adaptations. 6. Continuous monitoring and feedback. Track the effectiveness of implemented changes and provide feedback for further optimization. Question 11. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new sequencing algorithm could significantly increase airport arrival capacity. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of process optimization within the air traffic control regulatory framework? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive simulation study to assess the algorithm's impact on controller workload, situational awareness, and potential safety risks, alongside its capacity benefits before phased implementation. Option B. Rely on the anecdotal feedback from a few experienced controllers who believe the algorithm will be effective and proceed with a limited rollout. Option C. Prioritize the capacity gains by reducing standard separation minima when using the new algorithm, assuming the technology will compensate for any increased risk. Option D. Immediately deploy the new algorithm across all sectors, as the capacity increase is the primary objective. Correct answer is D. Immediately deploy the new algorithm across all sectors, as the capacity increase is the primary objective. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for increased air traffic capacity with the long-term implications of process changes on safety, efficiency, and controller workload. The ATSA test, in its focus on process optimization, assesses an air traffic controller's ability to identify and implement improvements that enhance the overall air traffic system without compromising its core safety mandate. The challenge lies in discerning which optimization strategies are truly beneficial and align with regulatory expectations, rather than simply adopting the quickest or most superficially appealing solution. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, data-driven evaluation of potential process changes. This aligns with the fundamental principles of air traffic management, which are heavily regulated to ensure safety and efficiency. Regulatory frameworks, such as those governing air traffic control operations, mandate that any changes to procedures must be rigorously assessed for their impact on safety, capacity, and controller workload. A systematic approach, involving simulation, pilot feedback, and adherence to established safety management systems, ensures that optimizations are not only effective, but also compliant with all relevant regulations and guidelines. This proactive and evidence-based methodology is crucial for maintaining the integrity of the air traffic system. Incorrect approaches fail to meet professional standards due to several regulatory and ethical failures. One incorrect approach might involve implementing a change based solely on anecdotal evidence or a single controller's suggestion without broader validation. This bypasses the regulatory requirement for systematic safety assessment and could introduce unforeseen risks. Another incorrect approach could be to prioritize capacity increases above all else, neglecting potential impacts on controller workload and situational awareness. This violates ethical obligations to maintain a safe operating environment and could lead to controller fatigue or errors, contravening regulations that address human factors in air traffic control. A third incorrect approach might involve adopting a new technology or procedure without adequate training or integration into existing protocols, which would likely lead to confusion, inefficiency, and potential safety breaches, directly violating operational standards and safety management system requirements. Professional decision-making in such situations should follow a structured process. This involves clearly defining the problem or opportunity for optimization, gathering relevant data, including operational metrics, controller feedback, and safety incident reports, identifying potential solutions, and then rigorously evaluating each solution against predefined criteria that include safety, efficiency, capacity, and regulatory compliance. Pilot studies or simulations are often essential steps before full implementation. Finally, continuous monitoring and evaluation post-implementation are critical to ensure the optimization remains effective and safe. Question 12. The monitoring system demonstrates a subtle, intermittent deviation in the predicted trajectory of an aircraft, deviating by a small margin from its assigned flight path for brief periods before returning to nominal parameters. Option A. Initiate a standard procedure for verifying system anomalies, cross-referencing with radar data and pilot reports if available, and document the observation for further analysis by technical support if the pattern persists. Option B. Immediately issue a deviation alert to the aircraft and adjacent sectors, assuming a critical system malfunction without further verification. Option C. Ignore the deviation as it's self-corrected, assuming it was a transient sensor error with no operational impact. Option D. Manually override the flight path of the aircraft to force it back onto the predicted trajectory, regardless of pilot input or other system data. The correct answer is A. Initiate a standard procedure for verifying system anomalies, cross-referencing with radar data and pilot reports if available, and document the observation for further analysis by technical support if the pattern persists. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing immediate operational needs with long-term system integrity and efficiency. The air traffic controller must interpret complex data from the monitoring system and make a decision that optimizes traffic flow while adhering to safety protocols. The professional challenge lies in discerning the true nature of the anomaly, whether it's a transient glitch or a precursor to a more significant issue, and acting decisively without causing undue disruption. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven response that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance. This means verifying the anomaly through independent means, consulting relevant procedures, and escalating appropriately if the anomaly persists or indicates a potential safety risk. This aligns with the fundamental principles of air traffic control, which mandate a proactive approach to safety and adherence to established operational guidelines to ensure the integrity of the air traffic management system. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the anomaly without proper verification, potentially overlooking a critical system failure that could compromise safety. This violates the principle of due diligence and could lead to regulatory noncompliance if a subsequent incident occurs due to the unaddressed issue. Another incorrect approach is to immediately implement drastic, unverified corrective actions that disrupt traffic flow unnecessarily. This demonstrates a lack of procedural adherence and could lead to operational inefficiencies and potential breaches of service-level agreements or regulatory performance standards. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on the monitoring system's initial alert without cross-referencing with other available information or expert consultation. This shows a failure to exercise independent judgment and a potential over-reliance on automated systems, which is contrary to the requirement for human oversight and critical thinking in air traffic management. Professionals should employ a decision-making process that involves 1. Immediate situational awareness and data assimilation from the monitoring system. 2. Verification of the anomaly through multiple sources and established procedures. 3. Risk assessment based on the nature and potential impact of the anomaly. 4. Consultation with supervisors or technical support as per established protocols. And 5. Implementation of the most appropriate, least disruptive, and safety-compliant course of action. Question 13. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of increased controller workload during peak hours, with a high potential severity of consequences if workload exceeds critical thresholds. Which approach to process optimization is most aligned with aviation safety regulations and best professional practice? Option A. Implement a pilot program for a new communication protocol during off-peak hours, meticulously monitoring controller performance and feedback, and only proceeding with wider implementation after successful validation and risk assessment. Option B. Introduce a new technology that automates certain routine tasks without conducting extensive human factors testing or providing supplementary training to controllers. Option C. Immediately adopt a simplified, faster communication procedure for all sectors, assuming that increased efficiency will inherently reduce workload and improve safety. Option D. Defer any process changes until a comprehensive, multi-year study can be completed, even if current workload indicators suggest a need for intervention. The correct answer is A. Implement a pilot program for a new communication protocol during off-peak hours, meticulously monitoring controller performance and feedback, and only proceeding with wider implementation after successful validation and risk assessment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between maintaining operational efficiency and ensuring the highest standards of safety, particularly when faced with a potential process bottleneck. The risk matrix, a standard tool in aviation safety management, highlights that while the probability of an incident might be low, the severity of consequences necessitates proactive mitigation. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimizations that enhance throughput without compromising the critical safety margins required for air traffic control. The correct approach, focusing on a phased implementation of process changes with continuous monitoring and validation, represents best professional practice because it aligns with the core principles of safety management systems mandated by aviation authorities. This method allows for the gradual introduction of new procedures, providing opportunities to assess their impact on safety performance and operational effectiveness in real time. It adheres to the principle of measure twice, cut once, ensuring that any optimization does not inadvertently introduce new risks or degrade existing safety protocols. This systematic and iterative process is crucial for maintaining the integrity of the air traffic control system. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate throughput gains without adequate validation risks violating fundamental safety regulations. For instance, implementing a significant process change based solely on perceived efficiency benefits, without rigorous testing or a pilot phase, could lead to unforeseen human factors issues or communication breakdowns, directly contravening regulations that mandate the prevention of errors and the maintenance of a safe separation between aircraft. Another incorrect approach, such as reverting to older, less efficient procedures due to minor, unconfirmed anomalies, demonstrates a failure to adapt and optimize, potentially leading to increased controller workload and reduced capacity, which can indirectly impact safety by increasing fatigue and stress. Ethically, air traffic controllers have a paramount duty to prioritize safety above all else, and any decision that compromises this duty, even for perceived efficiency, is professionally unacceptable. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a comprehensive risk assessment, followed by the development of a robust change management plan. This plan should include clear objectives, detailed procedures for implementation, defined metrics for success, and contingency plans. Crucially, it must incorporate a feedback loop for continuous evaluation and adjustment, ensuring that any process optimization is data-driven and demonstrably safe. This structured approach fosters a culture of continuous improvement while upholding the non-negotiable commitment to aviation safety. Question 14. The assessment process reveals a need to enhance the efficiency of the ATSA test air traffic skills assessment test. Considering the critical nature of air traffic control, which of the following strategies would best optimize the assessment process without compromising its validity and reliability? Option A. Significantly reduce the time allocated for each simulation segment to encourage faster responses from candidates. Option B. Analyze response patterns and decision-making quality within existing timeframes to identify and address specific cognitive bottlenecks or procedural inefficiencies that slow down accurate task completion. Option C. Increase the total number of simulation scenarios presented to candidates without adjusting the time per scenario. Option D. Remove complex decision-making elements from the simulation scenarios to simplify tasks and expedite completion. The correct answer is B. Analyze response patterns and decision-making quality within existing timeframes to identify and address specific cognitive bottlenecks or procedural inefficiencies that slow down accurate task completion. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge in optimizing the ATSA assessment process by focusing on the efficiency of candidate response times without compromising the accuracy of skill evaluation. This requires a nuanced understanding of how speed and accuracy interact within the context of air traffic control simulation. The professional challenge lies in identifying improvements that enhance throughput without introducing undue stress or leading to superficial performance that doesn't reflect true competency. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a holistic view of process optimization. It acknowledges that simply reducing time spent on tasks might lead to rushed decisions or missed critical information, which are antithetical to air traffic control safety and efficiency. Instead, it advocates for analyzing the quality of responses and the underlying cognitive processes, using data to identify bottlenecks that hinder both speed and accuracy. This aligns with the fundamental principles of aviation safety and regulatory compliance, which demand rigorous and reliable assessment of air traffic controller skills. The focus on identifying and addressing the root causes of inefficiencies, rather than just superficial time reductions, ensures that the assessment remains a valid predictor of operational performance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the time allowed for each simulation segment fails to account for the complexity of air traffic control decision-making. This could lead to candidates feeling pressured, making errors due to haste, or demonstrating a superficial understanding of procedures. This approach risks compromising the validity of the assessment, potentially allowing less competent individuals to pass, while unfairly penalizing those who require slightly more time for thorough analysis. This is professionally unacceptable as it deviates from the core purpose of the ATSA, which is to accurately gauge an individual's aptitude for managing air traffic safely and efficiently. Another incorrect approach that involves increasing the number of simulation scenarios without re-evaluating the time allocation per scenario would likely lead to candidate fatigue and diminished performance across the board. More scenarios might seem like a way to gather more data. If not managed effectively, it can dilute the quality of performance on each individual scenario. This approach fails to optimize the process and instead risks overwhelming candidates, leading to unreliable assessment data and potentially misrepresenting their true capabilities. This is professionally unsound as it prioritizes quantity over the quality of assessment. A further incorrect approach that suggests removing certain complex decision-making elements from the simulations to speed up responses fundamentally misunderstands the nature of air traffic control. The ATSA is designed to assess the ability to handle complex situations. Removing these elements would create an artificial and less realistic assessment environment, failing to evaluate critical skills required in actual air traffic control. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it would render the assessment invalid and incapable of fulfilling its purpose of ensuring qualified personnel are certified. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a data-driven, iterative approach. First, clearly define the objectives of the optimization in this case, improving process efficiency while maintaining assessment validity. Second, gather comprehensive data on current performance, including response times, accuracy rates, and qualitative feedback. Third, analyze this data to identify specific areas of inefficiency and their root causes. Fourth, propose and pilot potential solutions, carefully measuring their impact on both efficiency and validity. Finally, implement validated improvements and continue to monitor their effectiveness, always prioritizing the integrity and safety-critical nature of the assessment. Question 15. Stakeholder feedback indicates that certain sections of the ATSA test may be perceived as overly complex, potentially impacting candidate performance due to stress rather than a lack of core air traffic control aptitude. Considering the need for process optimization within the ATSA framework, which of the following approaches best aligns with ensuring the continued validity and effectiveness of the assessment? Option A. Conduct a thorough psychometric analysis of the affected ATSA sections. Pilot test revised task designs with a representative sample of air traffic controllers and candidates, and gather feedback from subject matter experts to ensure that any modifications maintain or enhance the assessment's ability to predict on-the-job performance. Option B. Implement immediate revisions to simplify the most frequently criticized ATSA tasks based on the qualitative feedback received to reduce candidate anxiety and improve overall pass rates. Option C. Focus on developing supplementary training materials that explain the rationale behind the complex ATSA tasks, rather than altering the test itself, to better prepare candidates for the assessment. Option D. Remove the sections identified as problematic by stakeholders, as they appear to be causing undue stress, and reallocate assessment focus to other areas deemed less contentious. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough psychometric analysis of the affected ATSA sections. pilot test revised task designs with a representative sample of air traffic controllers and candidates, and gather feedback from subject matter experts to ensure that any modifications maintain or enhance the assessment's ability to predict on-the-job performance. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for operational efficiency with the long-term implications of process changes on air traffic controller performance and safety. The ATSA test, as a critical assessment tool, must be robust and reliable. Any optimization must not compromise the validity or fairness of the assessment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a data-driven, iterative, and collaborative methodology. This involves thorough analysis of existing data, pilot testing of proposed changes, and seeking input from subject matter experts, air traffic controllers, and training specialists. This aligns with principles of continuous improvement and evidence-based practice, ensuring that any modifications to the ATSA are grounded in objective findings and validated through practical application. The focus is on enhancing the assessment's ability to accurately measure critical skills without introducing bias or compromising its established predictive validity for air traffic control performance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the perceived difficulty of certain ATSA tasks without a comprehensive understanding of their skill-measuring purpose would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to acknowledge that the ATSA is designed to simulate real-world operational pressures and assess a controller's ability to manage them. Such an approach risks creating an assessment that no longer accurately reflects the demands of the job, potentially leading to the certification of individuals who may not possess the necessary resilience or cognitive capacity for safe air traffic management. This would violate the ethical obligation to ensure the competence of air traffic controllers and could contravene regulatory requirements for standardized and valid assessments. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing significant changes based on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a limited group of stakeholders, without rigorous validation, is also professionally unsound. This bypasses the systematic evaluation necessary to confirm that the changes improve, rather than degrade, the assessment's effectiveness. It risks introducing unintended consequences, such as altering the psychometric properties of the test or creating a perception of unfairness among candidates. This approach lacks the scientific rigor expected in the development and maintenance of high-stakes professional assessments and could lead to regulatory noncompliance if the assessment is no longer deemed fit for purpose. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Define the problem or opportunity clearly, based on objective data or feedback. 2. Conduct a thorough analysis of the current process and its performance metrics. 3. Develop potential solutions or optimization strategies, considering all relevant constraints and objectives. 4. Prioritize solutions based on potential impact, feasibility, and alignment with regulatory requirements and best practices. 5. Implement changes in a controlled manner, often starting with pilot testing or phased rollouts. 6. Collect data and evaluate the effectiveness of the implemented changes. 7. Iterate and refine based on the evaluation results, ensuring continuous improvement. 8. Maintain open communication and collaboration with all relevant stakeholders throughout the process. Question 16. Compliance review shows that an aircraft has deviated from its assigned altitude without explicit clearance. The controller observes this deviation, but is currently managing a high traffic volume and is concerned about maintaining flow rates. What is the most appropriate immediate action for the air traffic controller to take from a stakeholder perspective focused on safety and regulatory compliance? Option A. Assume the pilot has a valid reason for the deviation and wait for them to report it. Option B. Allow the deviation to continue as long as it does not immediately appear to create a conflict to maintain the flow rate. Option C. Issue a new clearance to the deviated altitude without first confirming the reason for the deviation or ensuring return to the cleared altitude. Option D. Immediately issue a corrective instruction to the aircraft to return to its cleared altitude and verify its intentions. The correct answer is D. Immediately issue a corrective instruction to the aircraft to return to its cleared altitude and verify its intentions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing operational efficiency with the paramount importance of safety in air traffic control. The pressure to maintain flow rates and minimize delays can create a temptation to overlook minor deviations or to make assumptions about aircraft intentions. However, the core responsibility of an air traffic controller is to ensure the safe separation of all aircraft. The stakeholder perspective here involves not only the immediate needs of the pilots and airlines, but also the long-term trust and integrity of the air traffic control system, which is built on unwavering adherence to safety protocols. The professional challenge lies in recognizing that even seemingly minor procedural noncompliance can have cascading safety implications. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes immediate safety and procedural adherence. When a pilot deviates from a cleared altitude without explicit clearance, it represents a potential loss of separation and a direct violation of standard operating procedures. The controller's responsibility is to immediately address this deviation by issuing a corrective instruction to return to the cleared altitude and to verify the aircraft's position and intentions. This action upholds the fundamental principle of maintaining safe separation, which is the bedrock of air traffic control. This aligns with the core tenets of air traffic control regulations that mandate controllers to ensure separation and to take immediate action to rectify any loss of separation or potential loss of separation. The ethical imperative is to always place safety above all other considerations, including flow rates or pilot convenience. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves assuming the pilot has a valid reason for the deviation and waiting for them to report it. This is a failure to proactively manage safety. Regulations require controllers to maintain positive control and to be aware of the position and altitude of all aircraft under their control. Waiting for a pilot to self-report a deviation is a passive stance that relinquishes control and increases the risk of a loss of separation. This approach violates the principle of see and avoid, being augmented by positive air traffic control. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize maintaining the flow rate by allowing the deviation to continue as long as it doesn't immediately appear to cause a conflict. This is a severe regulatory and ethical failure. It prioritizes a secondary operational goal, flow rate, over the primary safety objective, separation. Air traffic control regulations are explicit about maintaining separation standards at all times. Allowing a deviation, even if it doesn't immediately result in a conflict, sets a dangerous precedent and erodes the integrity of the system. It implies that procedural compliance can be compromised for the sake of efficiency, which is fundamentally contrary to the purpose of air traffic control. A third incorrect approach is to issue a new clearance to the deviated altitude without first ensuring the aircraft has returned to its previously cleared altitude or confirming the reason for the deviation. This could inadvertently legitimize an unsafe situation and potentially create a conflict with other aircraft that are operating under the assumption of standard procedures. It fails to address the root cause of the deviation and could lead to further confusion or unsafe situations. Professional reasoning. Professionals in air traffic control must adopt a decision-making process that is rooted in a robust understanding of regulations and a commitment to safety. This involves 1. Immediate threat identification, recognizing any deviation from cleared parameters as a potential safety issue. 2. Proactive intervention, taking immediate action to rectify the situation and restore safe operations. 3. Procedural adherence, always operating within the established regulatory framework and standard operating procedures. 4. Communication clarity, ensuring clear and unambiguous communication with pilots. 5. Continuous situational awareness, maintaining a comprehensive understanding of the airspace and the status of all aircraft. In any situation where safety is compromised or potentially compromised, the controller's primary duty is to address the safety issue first, before considering any other operational factors. Question 17. Compliance review shows that a new automated conflict alert system has been implemented at the facility. During a busy period, the system flags a potential conflict that, based on the controller's visual assessment and experience, does not appear to pose an immediate risk. The controller is aware of the system's recent installation and ongoing validation phase. What is the most appropriate course of action for the air traffic controller? Option A. Cross-reference the system's alert with visual cues and radar data, and if separation is confirmed to be adequate, continue to monitor the situation while remaining vigilant for any changes. Option B. Disregard the system's alert entirely and continue managing traffic using only traditional methods, as the system is new and unproven. Option C. verbally express concern about the new system's reliability to nearby controllers and pilots, creating uncertainty about the traffic situation. Option D. Immediately issue a traffic advisory to the pilots involved and request immediate course corrections based solely on the system's alert. The correct answer is A. Cross-reference the system's alert with visual cues and radar data, and if separation is confirmed to be adequate, continue to monitor the situation while remaining vigilant for any changes. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing operational efficiency with the paramount importance of safety, particularly when a new technology is introduced. The air traffic controller's primary responsibility is to ensure the safe separation of aircraft. Introducing a new system, even one designed to enhance safety, requires a thorough understanding of its limitations and potential failure modes. The controller must critically evaluate the information provided by the system and not blindly accept its output, especially when it conflicts with established procedures or their own situational awareness. The professional challenge lies in discerning when to trust the new technology and when to revert to or supplement with traditional methods, all while maintaining the flow of air traffic. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes safety and adherence to established protocols. It involves a critical evaluation of the new system's output against the controller's own experience and understanding of the current traffic situation. This approach recognizes that technology is a tool, not a replacement for human judgment and vigilance. By cross-referencing the system's recommendation with visual cues and established separation standards, the controller ensures that safety is not compromised. This aligns with the fundamental principles of air traffic control, which always place safety above all other considerations, and reflects the regulatory expectation that controllers maintain situational awareness and exercise independent judgment. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves solely relying on the new system's output without independent verification. This represents a failure to exercise due diligence and a potential violation of safety regulations that mandate controllers to maintain situational awareness and ensure separation. It assumes the technology is infallible, which is a dangerous assumption in aviation. This approach could lead to a loss of separation if the system malfunctions or provides erroneous data. Another incorrect approach is to disregard the new system entirely and revert to older methods without a clear, immediate safety threat. While caution is warranted with new technology, completely ignoring a system designed to enhance safety, without a valid reason, could be seen as inefficient and potentially missing an opportunity to improve operational performance and safety. This approach might also indicate a resistance to adopting new, approved technologies, which could be a professional failing. A third incorrect approach is to question the system's output publicly and express doubt to pilots without a clear, actionable alternative or a confirmed system error. This can undermine pilot confidence in the air traffic control system and create confusion, potentially leading to unsafe situations. Professional conduct requires addressing system discrepancies through established reporting channels and maintaining a calm, authoritative demeanor with flight crews. Professional reasoning. Professionals in air traffic control must adopt a decision-making process that integrates new technologies with existing knowledge and procedures. This involves a continuous cycle of observation, assessment, and action. When faced with new systems, controllers should be trained to understand their capabilities and limitations. The decision-making framework should include 1. Verifying system outputs against other available information, visual, radar, pilot reports. 2. Understanding established protocols for system anomalies. 3. Communicating effectively with supervisors and relevant technical personnel. And 4. Prioritizing safety above all else, even if it means temporarily slowing down operations. This systematic approach ensures that technology serves as an aid to, rather than a substitute for, expert human judgment. Question 18. Benchmark analysis indicates that during a period of reduced visibility, an aircraft reports experiencing unexpected turbulence and a loss of situational awareness. The controller has a limited number of aircraft in the sector, but the reported conditions are not explicitly covered by a standard emergency procedure. Which of the following represents the most appropriate decision-making framework for the air traffic controller in this situation? Option A. Request the pilot to maintain their current heading and altitude until the turbulence subsides, assuming the situation is temporary. Option B. Consult the Aeronautical Information Publication, APE, for guidance on unexpected atmospheric phenomena and pilot disorientation, and then coordinate with the pilot and supervisor to develop a safe course of action. Option C. Continue to manage other traffic according to standard procedures while monitoring the affected aircraft's progress and awaiting further pilot input. Option D. Immediately issue vectors to the nearest suitable airport, prioritizing the aircraft's immediate safety over standard traffic flow. The correct answer is D. Immediately issue vectors to the nearest suitable airport, prioritizing the aircraft's immediate safety over standard traffic flow. Explanation. This scenario presents a professionally challenging situation because it requires an air traffic controller to balance immediate safety concerns with established operational procedures and the potential impact of a deviation. The controller must quickly assess the severity of the situation, consider the available resources and alternatives, and make a decision that prioritizes the safety of all aircraft while adhering to regulatory guidelines. The challenge lies in the inherent uncertainty and the need for rapid, informed judgment under pressure. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it involves a systematic evaluation of the situation against established protocols and a clear, documented justification for any deviation. This aligns with the core principles of air traffic control, which emphasize safety, efficiency, and adherence to regulations. Specifically, it demonstrates a commitment to the decision-making framework that requires controllers to consider all relevant factors, consult available resources, such as the Aeronautical Information Publication or relevant directives, and communicate effectively with pilots and supervisors. This methodical process ensures that decisions are not arbitrary, but are grounded in a thorough understanding of the operational environment and regulatory requirements. An incorrect approach that prioritizes expediency over thorough assessment would be professionally unacceptable. This could involve making a snap decision without fully understanding the implications or without consulting available guidance, potentially leading to unforeseen conflicts or safety hazards. Such an approach would violate the regulatory requirement for controllers to exercise due diligence and adhere to established procedures designed to maintain separation and prevent collisions. Another incorrect approach might be to rigidly adhere to a procedure that is clearly unsafe or impractical in the given circumstances, without seeking clarification or authorization for a deviation. This failure to adapt to dynamic situations, even when it means deviating from standard operating procedures, can also compromise safety and is contrary to the ethical obligation of an air traffic controller to ensure the safe and orderly flow of air traffic. Professionals in this field should employ a decision-making framework that includes 1. Situation assessment. Rapidly identify the core problem and its potential impact. 2. Information gathering. Consult relevant regulations, procedures, and available data. 3. Option generation. Brainstorm potential courses of action. 4. Option evaluation. Assess each option against safety, efficiency, and regulatory compliance. 5. Decision and action. Select the best option and implement it. 6. Communication. Inform relevant parties of the decision and its rationale. 7. Review and documentation. Record the event and the decision-making process for future analysis and learning. Question 19. Strategic planning requires a thorough evaluation of new technologies before their integration into air traffic control systems. Considering the paramount importance of safety, which of the following represents the most responsible and compliant approach when assessing the potential impact of a new radar system designed to enhance situational awareness? Option A. Postpone the implementation indefinitely due to the inherent complexity of new technology and the potential for unforeseen safety risks, even if the technology promises significant improvements. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that includes rigorous safety validation, risk analysis, and the development of mitigation strategies, ensuring compliance with all relevant aviation safety regulations before operational deployment. Option C. Prioritize the operational benefits and cost savings projected by the new system, assuming that any safety concerns can be managed through existing procedures without specific pre-implementation validation. Option D. Proceed with immediate implementation, trusting the vendor's assurances of enhanced safety and operational efficiency, and address any unforeseen issues post-deployment. The correct answer is D. Proceed with immediate implementation, trusting the vendor's assurances of enhanced safety and operational efficiency, and address any unforeseen issues post-deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing operational efficiency with the paramount safety mandate inherent in air traffic control. The introduction of a new technology, while promising improvements, carries inherent risks that must be thoroughly assessed before implementation. The pressure to adopt new systems for perceived gains can sometimes overshadow the need for rigorous safety validation, creating a conflict between progress and the non-negotiable requirement of maintaining the highest safety standards. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a comprehensive impact assessment that includes rigorous safety validation and risk mitigation strategies. This aligns directly with the core principles of aviation safety regulations, which mandate that any change affecting air traffic operations must be thoroughly evaluated for its potential impact on safety. This proactive approach ensures that potential hazards are identified and addressed before they can manifest, thereby upholding the integrity of the air traffic system and protecting the flying public. This is best professional practice as it embodies the principle of safety first and adheres to the spirit and letter of regulatory frameworks designed to prevent accidents. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediate implementation based on vendor claims without independent verification. This fails to meet regulatory requirements for system validation and introduces unacceptable risk. Ethically, it breaches the duty of care owed to the public and the aviation community. Another incorrect approach is to delay implementation indefinitely due to minor, easily mitigatable concerns. While caution is necessary, an inability to progress with potentially beneficial technologies due to an overly risk-averse stance can hinder overall system modernization and efficiency, potentially leading to other, less direct safety issues if older systems become obsolete or unreliable. However, the primary failure here is not adhering to a balanced risk management approach. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on the operational benefits without adequately considering the safety implications. This directly contravenes the fundamental regulatory principle that safety is the primary consideration in all air traffic control decisions. It represents a significant ethical lapse, prioritizing efficiency over the lives of passengers and crew. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a systematic risk management framework. This involves identifying potential hazards, assessing their likelihood and severity, and implementing controls to mitigate them to an acceptable level. Decision-making should be guided by a thorough understanding of relevant regulations, a commitment to safety culture, and a balanced consideration of operational, technical, and safety factors. When faced with new technologies, a structured evaluation process, including simulation, testing, and expert review, is essential. Question 20. Strategic planning requires a thorough evaluation of new technologies, considering the introduction of an advanced automated conflict detection system, which approach best ensures the continued safety and efficiency of air traffic operations while adhering to regulatory mandates. Option A. Proceed with immediate operational deployment based on positive vendor demonstrations and initial pilot feedback, with a plan to address any emergent issues post-implementation. Option B. Implement the system in a limited capacity in a non-critical airspace sector and gather operational data for several months before considering wider rollout. Option C. Rely solely on the vendor's certification and internal testing data, assuming the technology meets all required safety standards. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive, independent safety impact assessment, including failure mode analysis, human factors evaluation, and integration testing with existing systems, before any operational deployment. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive, independent safety impact assessment, including failure mode analysis, human factors evaluation, and integration testing with existing systems, before any operational deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing operational efficiency with the paramount safety mandate inherent in air traffic control. The introduction of a new technology, while promising improvements, carries inherent risks that must be thoroughly assessed before implementation. The professional challenge lies in making a decision that prioritizes safety above all else, even when faced with potential operational benefits or pressure to adopt new systems. This requires a deep understanding of the regulatory framework and a commitment to rigorous risk management. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that meticulously evaluates the potential effects of the new technology on all aspects of air traffic control operations, with a primary focus on safety. This includes identifying potential failure modes, assessing their likelihood and severity, and developing robust mitigation strategies. This aligns with the core principles of aviation safety regulation, which mandate proactive risk identification and management. By prioritizing a thorough, evidence-based assessment before deployment, this approach upholds the highest professional standards and regulatory compliance, ensuring that any new system enhances, rather than compromises, the safety of the airspace. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to proceed with implementation based on preliminary positive feedback without a full, independent safety impact assessment. This fails to adhere to regulatory requirements for system validation and certification, which demand comprehensive testing and risk analysis. Ethically, it represents a dereliction of duty to prioritize safety. Another incorrect approach would be to delay implementation indefinitely due to minor, hypothetical risks that have not been substantiated by data. Caution is necessary. An overly conservative stance that stifles innovation without a clear, evidence-based safety justification can also be detrimental. This might not directly violate a specific regulation, but could be seen as failing to meet the spirit of continuous improvement in aviation safety and efficiency, provided such improvements do not compromise safety. A third incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the vendor's internal testing and assurances without independent verification. This bypasses crucial regulatory oversight and independent safety assurance processes. It places undue trust in a party with a vested interest in the technology's adoption, potentially overlooking critical safety concerns that only an independent assessment can uncover. This is a direct contravention of the principles of due diligence and independent safety assurance, mandated by regulatory bodies. Professional reasoning. Professionals in air traffic control must adopt a systematic, risk-based decision-making process. This involves understanding the regulatory landscape, identifying potential hazards, assessing risks, and implementing appropriate control measures. When considering new technologies, a phased approach is often best, starting with thorough research and analysis, followed by rigorous testing in controlled environments, and finally, a carefully managed implementation with continuous monitoring. The ultimate decision to deploy any new system must be grounded in a demonstrable commitment to safety, supported by robust data and adherence to all applicable regulations.